Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello and welcome to episode 147, Jesus fucking Christ, of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Paris, who can't keep it together, and this is Chris.
Hi, I'm barely keeping it together here as well. And I understand, Paris, that's a big number.
Yeah, I saw it and my brain went,
We're approaching
no.
150.
Oh, it's so many. And it's not like we do these twice a week or every week. This is every other week, so think about how long
That's
it's
still
been happening.
That's still really often, Paris. To be clear, to be doing this every 2 weeks is still taxing.
Yeah, it is. Especially considering we both have to read an entire work for every 2 weeks. Anyway, this time we read AintAHero, Season 1, a web series by Bryan W. Schuder. This was suggested to us by the author himself, who is also our patron. This is a free web series that you can find at AintAHero.com. That is AintAHero.com. If this is your first time listening to the show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. But sometimes, like today, we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend. So we typically do the opposite of what most people do when they are in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet looking for something to read. Usually, this experiment results in a hilarious and disappointing read, but once in a while, we do actually end up liking the book. For content warnings today, just our usual barnyard language today. Nothing crazy in this one. Nothing
violent, like RPG cartoon character violence, perhaps?
Yeah, I guess that's about it.
All right, well, I'm going to read the back of the book summary. I really actually just went with the summary that's on Goodreads because there's not really an Amazon page for this from what I saw. And the header on the subreddit for AintAHero was a little bit too short, so I just went with the Goodreads summary.
All right, fair enough.
Seated in front of the television watching the news story about his brother's defeat against the Dark Lord, Bach ponders as to how it could have happened and can't believe that last bullshit attack. The ghostly visage of his brother agrees. Bach gets thrown/abducted back into the adventuring life by his now ethereal brother along with his brother's old adventuring party, whether he immediately cares for it or not.
Dun, dun. All right. Chris, why don't you do the characters and setting, and then I will read the summary that you wrote of our experience of the plot points to help everyone understand what's going on.
Okay, so as you gathered, the main character, our protagonist, is Bach, and his brother, who is dead and a ghost, is Sebastian. Cute joke there, of course.
Yes.
Then we have Sebastian's entourage/adventuring party, and here's where we get into fantasy name pronunciation argument starring Chris and Paris, I'm willing to bet.
I don't know. Let's hear it. What do you think these names are?
Okay, so we have Dretfi. Are you with me on that one?
Yeah,
okay.
Dretfi.
No.
I might say Dreffy because cramming all those consonants in there seems a little absurd.
Not Dretfi? Okay, all right.
No,
good.
Dreffy. I would say Dreffy. I would roll the R. I don't know why, but I would do that.
That does make it a little bit more interesting than Dretfi. Then we have Sedida, which is how I always pronounced it.
Why did you hang on the double E?
I don't know. It just feels like I should say Sedida.
I mean, Sedita is, basically the same. Yeah.
That's really how it. Then we have Sotalia.
Sotalia, yep.
She is so tall, yeah.
She's so tall, yo. Sotalia.
Also, so my partner has a friend named Talia, so I envisioned this person as someone that was so Talia. So I had to envision this character as as Rebecca's friend, but
that's great.
Turned up. And then we have Aristespa.
Yeah, I that's another one where I'm like, too many consonants. Like,
is that how you would say it?
Aristespa or Aristaspa? I would say I said Aristespa in my head, but
is this the first time we've agreed on every fantasy name pronunciation, Paris?
Yeah, potentially.
That's notable. There's something remarkable about that. I wonder
like how they came out of my mouth, though. They didn't feel good.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's a real bad mouthfeel on these names, and I guess that's a personal preference. We'll get into that whole thing later. There's a rival adventuring crew who is currently on a reality TV show about adventuring.
Next Adventurers of Nexus is the TV show.
I think Sebastian's party was on before?
I didn't catch that. I didn't think they were. Maybe, I don't know. It was a detail I didn't store in my brain.
Yeah, I was a little unsure about that. Anyway, that crew is Trakenthin, Deidre, Tisalda, Mordorin, and Chad.
Great.
Gotta throw a Chad joke in there somewhere all the time.
Gotta do it. I didn't even remember that, so.
We have Samantha, a production manager,
correct,
I think, for the reality TV show that we just mentioned. Mm-hmm. There's Valavera, the teenage witch, who pops up in basically 2 chapters. And then we have Dark Lord Noxian, also known as Sir, not appearing in this film. Because he doesn't show up. He's mentioned a whole lot, but it's just nothing to do with anything, really. I mean, some part of him meddling is part of the plot, but he's not here. He doesn't show up at all. I don't even know what he looks like or is. Is he a man? Is he a monster?
Lord. He's a Dark Lord. Don't worry about it.
That could span so many things.
Matter.
Okay,
fine.
All right, moving on.
He's just evil bad guy missed. That's all. That's all. Amorphous, amorphous evil bad guy.
The last boss of Final Fantasy IV. I get it.
Right. So now that we've touched on some of the characters, I guess we didn't really talk about the setting, but the setting is just Nexus, right? Amaranth is the city.
It's just.
Is it just Earth?
Like,
fantasy Earth.
Yeah, like vaguely post-apocalyptic kind of. He's doing the mixed fantasy and normal tech thing here, but also sci-fi. So there's like swords and shields and magic, but also Humvees, but also laser pistols.
Yeah.
So just throw all that together, cook for like, I don't know, a couple months and see what comes out.
It's all there. So just so you all get a sense of the basic plot points and what the story was like without having to read all of it, we've written for you, or I should say Chris has written for you, this summary. So let's get going with that. Bach is just your average guy, sitting on the couch watching his chosen one brother Sebastian get murked by Dork Lord.
I would actually love to read a fantasy novel that had a Dork Lord instead of a Dark Lord. I'm just saying that right here.
I agree with you. Wow, sorry, my brain just decided it was Dork Lord. I'm just going to stick with it. The Dork Lord Noxian on the news. That's when Sebastian's ghost shows up with his adventuring party to recruit him into the party so they can resurrect Sebastian by plunging the sword he is ethereally bound to into the Dork Lord Noxian's heart. The party immediately drops this quest in favor of doing run-of-the-mill mercenary work, like checking out an abandoned compound. It's full of cyber zombies. Good thing that Bach, despite having an encounter with a nightmare geist years ago that robbed him of his ability to use magic, can actually still use magic, but better than everyone else because he's just that good. What follows is the loop of the story. The party does some RPG characters at home stuff, like watch TV or go shopping or eat popcorn or have magic training sessions or wear comfy clothes around the house, and then does a mission at probably an abandoned compound. There's a lot of them lying around, I guess. We're introduced to Aristespa, an Avukian elf? Healer with leadership skills who's dating Sebastian, Drethvi, a Grath orc, Brute, who's a soldier warrior class, Sotalia, a half Emin, I don't know, mage with a hoarding streak, and Sedita, a Valian cat girl with the tech specialty. Meanwhile, an adventuring reality show is somehow always being filmed nearby with another party of 5 who are on the quest to kill Dork Lord Noxian. They show up mostly to annoy the main party, although I don't really 100% get why the main party hates this crew besides the fact that they took their spot on the TV show. Maybe? Is it jealousy? Who knows? The producers of the show seem to be guiding the main party along through underhanded means for viewership numbers, so I'm assuming this is the overarching plot point that ties multiple seasons together. Anyway, they run into a big robot enemy with a minigun, laser cannon, and great sensors at one of those abandoned compounds, except Lord Noxian was there for some reason, so it's more important now. The mech is a tough fight, but everyone pulls together, and Bach does a special magic, so robot go boom. The party returns to their hideout, it's just an Airbnb, to lick their wounds, but oh no, the other party moved in next door. The end. Alright, does that about cover everything, Chris?
I feel like it. I mean, did you notice anything that was left out of there? I guess I didn't mention the whole Valavera thing. She's just some teenage witch in a forest in the mission they go on. She's like kind of taken over it a little bit, but not really because she's inept, and Aristesfa knows her somehow, and they just take her back and like deposit her off with her uncle or something. Like,
yeah, they're like distant cousins or something. I don't quite remember. It honestly didn't feel like it mattered at all, so I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about things that were good.
Sure. I mean, I would say the strong point of this web serial, I suppose is the best way to put it. We read the first 13 chapters because that's packaged into one season.
Right.
There are 8 seasons of this thus far, so it is a lengthy work, you could say, and we were not going to read 8. It just wasn't going to happen. So we called season 1 book 1, and we went with that. And I would say the strong point for it has been the dialogue generally feels somewhat realistic. I would say there's some points that I would maybe put points against it, but the general feel of it is perhaps the most readable thing about this.
Yeah, actually, just small correction there. There are 10 seasons of this, not 8.
I thought, okay, God.
But yeah, there's another yet more reason as to why we just read one season. Yeah, I think the dialogue feels realistic and appropriate most of the time. People talk like people, even in this like weird kind of apocalyptic fantasy setting. Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, oh, the dialogue is decent. This sounds like people talking to people. This is good. That's about all I got. I guess I can read some selections. Okay. So in chapter 4, there's this little interaction between everybody and Bach because his cell phone is like so old. Sebastian finally turns to Bach. As for you, Bach, I figured you could tag along with Sedita and... He lunges his head forward to stare intensely at the old flip ether phone Bach holds in his hands. Sebastian reflexively laughs at seeing the old device. Holy shit, and get you a new phone. Speaking of a fucking relic, is that the same one you had in school? Bach defensively darts his head around and quickly realizes the attention towards his old phone. Yeah, what about it? It still works just fine. Sebastian raises his hands up and attempts to calm Bach. Hey now, no judging here. I'm gonna hook you up, bro. Sedita, can you get this man a proper phone? Sedita momentarily flicks her eyes into the rearview mirror with her signature toothy grin. Will do. I saw 1 or 2 places that should carry decent phones. Talia spins completely around in her seat and peeks over the headrest at Bach. Her eyes widen and she smirks. Her hand whips out and snatches the phone right out of Bach's hand. Oh, let me see. Bach blinks at the sudden loss of his phone. Then tries to reach around the front seat after it. So Talia slaps a hand underneath her seat and pulls a bar up. She slides her seat forward and mostly out of range of Bach's effective arm reach. Oh, that's a typo in the text. I haven't seen one of these since graduate school. Does it have any of the good games on it? Bach settles back down and crosses his arms, accepting defeat and remembering which way Sotalia's horns point. A few. I'd like my phone back, please. Sotalia playfully sighs and rolls her eyes. Okay, here you go.
Okay, yeah, that was pretty decent, I would say. Here's another part around chapter 6, having to do with basically some medical stuff that some party members are performing on some people that they have rescued. So Talia sits nearby, lightly applying the last strip along a middle-aged man's side. The side of his chest is heavily bruised and sore. He groans and grumbles with each unintentional move that causes pain. Satalia reaches into a belt pouch and pulls out a small vial of blue liquid. Now drink this. The man eyes the vial with suspicion and furrows his brow at Satalia. What's it do? Satalia quirks an eyebrow back and holds it closer to the man's face. Oh, prevents you from experiencing tremendous amounts of pain when the brace strips I put on you activate and move your broken ribs away from your internal organs. The man glares at the vial again. Satalia rolls her eyes and sighs. It's blue raspberry flavored, if that helps, Mr. Harris. Harris twists his mouth and takes hold of the vial. Like the slushies at the convenience store? Satalia nods. Harris opens the top and pours the solution into his mouth, tilting his head back. He swallows and gives a nod of approval at Satalia. Not bad. So what's next? Satalia grins and presses her hand on the side of Harris. This. Harris's eyes widen as the strips glow and a few ribs shift slightly underneath his skin in the strips. He checks his side gently, pokes the bruises, and lifts his intrigued expression to Satalia. Man, that is such a fucked up feeling. Satalia applies a cover pad over the strips and laughs with Harris. I know, I've used these a few times and I never get used to that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So, yeah, there's plenty of exchanges like that kind of make the dialogue feel real and not cardboard cutouty.
There's a little life there, right? Like the slushies at the convenience store things, because that's something the guy likes. The little joke about blue raspberry flavored. And in your example, kind of poking fun at someone with an old phone.
Yeah, and I think the use of cursing, the swears in it makes sense. Like they're used to show that people are, speaking like regular people do and are being casual, and that's fine. I slightly
disagree on some of that in some portions of, like, not in the scenes that we read there. That is appropriate use of it. But other times, I feel like some of the cursing is used to make it seem like someone is cool for cursing because they're a cool person that swears.
Oh, that's weird. I didn't get that sense at all in this.
It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly when, but I feel like it's when they're trying to do like action hero stuff or someone's like overexcited and they're like, what the fuck, you fucking motherfucker. Like, it just, like, there's a lot of them in a row. And I feel like it turns into this thing where it's just like, well, he's just trying to act cool because cool people swear.
I don't know. I guess it didn't hit me quite the same way.
As a tangent to this, Paris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How old were you, would you say, when you stopped thinking that hearing someone swearing was cool? Because I feel like when I was like somewhere between like 7 to 12, perhaps I thought like, oh, that person said fuck. That means that they're cool and they don't care about what people think. And then after 12, I found it immature.
I never thought that. I never really cared about people that swore or didn't swear. I don't have any memory of like giving a shit about this at all. So
I have a clear memory of like,
that's funny,
a portion of my boyhood in which it was like, well, they said fuck and therefore
that's
must
hilarious.
Be a cool guy.
I think I just grew up around people who swore constantly, so it never registered with me that it, I don't know, that it really mattered. I mean, I knew well enough not to swear in school, but, at home, it's constant swearing, so I just didn't...
Maybe I just wasn't exposed to quite enough of it.
Yeah. Right, so moving on, past the dialogue was decent. Honestly, I think one of the redeeming qualities about this is that it's just pure adventure stuff without any weird racist, sexist, bizarro shit. So far, there's no real romance. Even though there are two characters who are dating, it's not the main focus of anything. We don't spend a lot of time on it. And there's also no, like, weird capitalist slavering like that's happening here. Like, no one's foaming at the mouth for like, oh, capitalism good, like, that's not really, which is... sadly, it's common in these sorts of things.
Yeah, like, I know what you mean, Paris. Like, there's not this weird undercurrent of trying to push the values that capitalism wants us to value.
Right, we're not pulling up by bootstraps. We're not focusing on that.
At the same time, a big crux of the story here is the capitalization. I suppose that's not the right word to use, but... the capitalization of adventuring because it's on reality TV and like is therefore very commodified in a way.
Yeah.
But that's to be funny, right? Like that's to be poked fun at.
Yeah, and I don't know that anyone's like super stoked about the state of the world. It's just it is what it is, right?
Sure. And I think I keep pointing back to this example because I just really love this book. But like Orconomics, really great example of like parodying that like capitalist fetish for commodification of things and twining that up with like an adventurer world. I think it was just really well done. This story also did that pretty decently. I was actually more intrigued by the like reality show stuff and like what was going on with that producer more than pretty much anything else in the story. So it was a shame that we didn't get too much of that.
Yeah, I mean this is a web series. I mean at this point you go into it knowing there's, another 9 seasons and growing. So
yeah, conceivably we get more into that later, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it was like too. It didn't do too much of like the cliffhanger. Now you must buy the second book. Like I didn't feel too trapped at the end.
Is that how cliffhangers make you feel?
Yeah, trapped.
Coerced. That's what a cliffhanger is. I would also say that the fight scenes are legible. Right? Like, what's going on where. They're not confusingly written. It's very clear. This story kind of has a very matter-of-fact way of writing things sometimes, which often can be to its detriment, which we will get to later on. But in the fight scenes, I think it actually works for it quite a bit. It's very clear who's performing what action. It's not too flowery about it. It just kind of really gives you a good idea of positioning and who's doing what kind of maneuver without making it too overcomplicated. And I actually think sort of the way that the teamwork is set up in the combat scenes is pretty well done too. Even though usually it ends with Bach doing a special magic thing that saves everybody. Yeah. Up until that moment, there's a good balance of why all these people are in the party, which is
sure.
For something that is explicitly, I think, trying to be aping this sort of RPG, like specifically like video gamey / D&D adventuring party kind of thing. It does a pretty good job of making sure all those characters have something to be doing, something to do in these fight scenes. I don't know. So I've mentioned before my light hypothesis that perhaps writing a good fight scene is much akin to writing a good sex scene. I don't know how this stacks up against that. I feel like this is making me have to go back to the drawing board on my hypothesis because I don't know if like I would enjoy a sex scene that was written this way too, because that would be very clinical. And I don't think that unless there's something that has to be clinical about the fuck scene for some reason, like.
Yeah, only if it's like a medical fetish scene, perhaps.
Or like there is some sex happening with some non-human entity where I really need to know exactly which fourth arm or tentacle or appendage is going somewhere.
Yeah, how does the cloud work in this scene? Where does the mist come into play?
I'm very confused. Please elaborate.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd agree with all that. My last thing that I thought I liked that I thought was like novel was a couple of the ideas that the author put into the world to make it a little different from ours, and I thought it was clever. There was this idea that magic is, it seems like it's like a mix of biological, but you also have to work at it, and then sometimes you can interact, like your body's chemistry can interact with some kind of other, chemical or substance, and that can also produce magic. And I think the coolest way this is demonstrated is some magical ink. Right, so at one point they are in this like nerd geek store or whatever, where you go to get like gaming stuff and your fucking Pikachu cards or whatever. Bach notices that the proprietor is struggling with some magical ink he's trying to use with a spell book. And Bach is like, oh, I just think the pH is off. Like, do you have a little lime and salt? And basically, like, fixes it so that the pH is balanced. And then it works better. And then he, like, teaches the guy some other tips and tricks or whatever. But I just thought the idea of balancing the chemistry of a magical ink was kind of fun. And then the like magical advanced first aid was also cool. Like the scene Chris talked about earlier with the rib displacement strips or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that those are neat ideas, and I've always liked the blending of magic with scientific method, let's say, because one thing I always have against like magic schools in any of the like video games or some fantasy series like this is it's not like I need the Harry Potter classroom scene, but at the same time, I feel like there's a neglect of the sort of researcher / scientific aspect of magicians and mages or sorcerers and what have you. So I think bringing in this element of like, oh, there's like a chemical explanation for this thing is kind of neat.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Do we have any other good things, or do you want to move into things that we did not like so much?
I think perhaps things that we did not like it's time for that.
All right. So right at the top of the hour for the things that were bad. I've always got to come to you with my nitpicking technical errors, and oh boy, howdy, surprising number of dropped words and sentences. So there are lots of missing to, the, a, like a lot of articles and like connecting words that have just vanished. They have been sucked away by the Dork Lord Noxian, who hates.
That's how he survives. That's how he gains his power. Yeah. Every article that you missed is just feeding him. He's ever stronger.
Yes. Similarly, a lot of dropped S's on plurals, word order issues, word confusions. We have things like silent instead of silence, or home instead of hone. I mean, several times where you have things like that happen. And then lastly, like an over-attachment to the verb puzzles or puzzled or puzzle for someone just thinking about something or being quizzical. I mean, it comes up so often in this, 10, 13 chapters, but it's not terribly long. So it really stuck out to me.
Can I add crooking of the corner of the mouth to this list, and mouth corners in general being very high priority to let me know exactly where the corners of a person's mouth are?
Yeah. And so similar, this flows naturally from that point. We've got a lot of like awkward descriptions. So like Chris just said, everyone is always pulling or drawing their smiles or facial expressions. This example really got me. Bach holds his hands up and pulls his mouth to a corner, which just reads like he's literally pulling the sides of his mouth up with his hands.
Like that scene in The Joker where he's just trying to like humanly emote as much as he can, so he's just yanking his cheeks backward. Which just a lot of that. Everyone's always pulling or drawing their smiles, and everyone's lips are moving into corners. I don't know. It was just a really awkward way to describe facial expressions. And there's other things we can focus on. The eyes here and there. Perhaps just the overall general demeanor of the face. Or like it's very mouth focused. Oral fixation happening here.
Yeah. It felt very wooden, and again this sort of gave you like a is the author an alien feel, because why would you be focusing on those things? And in terms of other awkward descriptions, we have these other examples. Dretfi leans herself up with head next to Sotalia's to read the writing too.
So that with head there is I get that he's trying to say Dretfi is putting her head next to Sotalia's,
leans herself up with head.
Leans herself up with head. Okay, so a couple of things could be happening here. It's a very head forward sort of lean where like the head is leaning, or somehow the head is dragging the rest of the body along.
Yeah.
There's also perhaps the Dretfi is receiving head as this is happening, which as far as I know from the context wasn't the case here. But like,
oh God,
like the with head there is very awkward. You could actually just drop that entirely and it would be better.
Or even the leans herself up part. That construction is very strange, and it leads to the reader then being confused about what the sentence is saying rather than enjoying.
Is like a side to side thing, right? And if I think Dredfi was on a couch and sitting up was what was happening here, which is
I have no
different
idea.
from a lean. Okay, Paris, would you ever consider a vertical motion a lean?
What? No, Chris, no, and that's also not what was happening. They were, I think they were either sitting on a couch together and she just wanted to like nudge over so she could see the writing, or they were standing near each other and she just wanted to get close to see the writing. But I don't know. It's very confusing.
It's the up that confused me. I thought there was a physical up direction instead of like.
This is what I mean. The whole thing needs to be thrown in the garbage. It doesn't make sense. So
it's like you're sidling up on someone. That kind of up, not physical. Okay, yes. So
why wouldn't it just say Dretfi leans against Natalia to read the writing?
I don't know.
That's all they're trying to say. Here's another one. He tries to catch a glimpse of Aristespa's face as she properly walks to a chair across from Bach. There's a lot of this properly used, this adverb several times to describe people walking or sitting. It's like, that doesn't make, why?
It's supposed to be like poshness? Like,
I don't
as
think
if someone is, that's what I think it's supposed to be, is like very good posture or something.
And then there's this great one. Sedita finishes crewing down a large piece of jerky and taps Natalia on the shoulder, laughs. What?
You ever get tapped on your shoulder, laughs, Paris? You know, that key part of the human body.
Yeah, what about crewing down a large piece of jerky? Crewing. Really, you're just rowing with 10 other people.
There's some jerkies out, Paris, there are some jerkies out there that really do feel like I need a whole team to just get them chewed up.
Fair enough.
You probably actually haven't had jerky in, I don't know, decades. So
yeah, a very long time. Yeah, so again, you just have a lot of these little mistakes that are so constant that it really takes you out of the story. So and it's not like any of these things are a death sentence, right? These could all be fixed with an editor, like pretty easily. You just need another set of eyes on this thing.
And I guess we can cross our fingers that in 10 seasons this did improve.
Yeah, I guess we don't know. We've also got some we've got unnecessary lingering where we're idling on little details that don't matter over by the 10-yard line. It seems like player thinks this is a screenplay instead of a novel. Red flag.
Boy, oh boy, Paris, this is the fundamental problem I have with this. This is the absolute crucible by which I was cast into to try to come. Paris, let me ask you something. We took a break before we read this.
Mm-hmm.
I had an AintAHero tab open on my phone for months.
Yeah, I did too on my computer.
For months, because it was stuff like this made it a slog to want to get through. I had this open, like, I was like, when I went to Scotland for a week, I was
God,
I can't.
That was a while ago.
I can read this like on the plane. I have 6 hours each way. I got to do something over there. I would get through like 4 paragraphs, and then they were talking about the specific shirt someone was wearing and what color it was. Which, fine, the first time you're setting the scene, but like on the 5th or 6th time, you're setting the scene with how comfy they are in their shorts and tank tops that were blue, or whatever. Like
Chris, and then you were like, you know what? I'm literally trapped on a flying metal tube. I have nothing else to do. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna look out the window. I'm gonna sleep.
I fucking watched Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the in-flight movie.
No!
Which, by the way, I also didn't finish. So really, I was just in a hellscape of like starting things up and just deciding this isn't worth it.
Chris, that feels so insulting. I can't believe. Oh, that's a choice. I don't think I would have made that choice.
I also got 40 minutes into Licorice Pizza and also decided I was a little bit uncomfortable, so I stopped.
Oh, I have no interest in movies. Like, I don't even know. It just looked like a girl and boy in love coming of age movie, and I was like, no thank you.
It had the guitar player from Haim as the main female character, so I wanted to watch it because of that.
I don't even know what Haim is.
Very good band.
All right, well. Anyway, returning to the unnecessary lingering.
Yes.
So unnecessary lingering is where you have an author just hanging out on these little details that do not fucking matter. And to be clear, so people don't erupt in foamy, frothy fury at us, it's great, actually, when an author lingers on tiny details that matter to the plot, that make the plot
or even
more
just set a scene or like an emotional subtext.
Right. Yeah, that's great. But this is not what we're talking about here. We have, instead, things like this. Bach watches Threadfee step through the doorway and close the door. He stands up from the bed and moves over to the clothes stack. He sorts through the pile until he finds a shirt, peels off his old shirt, and works into the clean shirt. Bach resumes a seat on the bed. After a few minutes of idle but deep thoughts, he plays around with the settings of the alarm clock, trying to get it set up for tomorrow. Just that.
What in God's
like 30
name
times.
could this what in God's name could this add that he put on the shirt from the clothes pile and then he sat there with deep but idle thoughts? Why aren't we getting those deep but idle thoughts? Like, what is happening in there?
Yeah, and it would be more meaningful if we were in his internal monologue hearing those deep but idle thoughts while he was futzing with the alarm clock and like talking about how, I guess when I'm done setting up this alarm clock, that means I really have to think about tomorrow. Like anything like that would have worked, but you're not connecting anything. You're just telling us about these things that don't. This is just
like a chores scene or something.
Yeah. You know what else really struggled with this? That like Pokemon book. What was that called?
Emblem Unity.
Yeah, that one, and I mean we've read a few things that have kind of had this problem. So I guess the whole point is like, if this isn't a screenplay, you don't need to tell us where every character is, what they're wearing, these little mundane things. And I know that this is supposed to be like a slice of life, but I still just don't think I need to hear about every door opening and every like piece of pie being sliced or whatever.
So I think this is done in the name of realism. Like, oh, it's so realistic. We're getting into the reality with all these small details. But like another scene that pops up here is this fucking painstaking popcorn distribution scene that happens where they're just chilling out watching TV and it makes sure to tell you who got how much popcorn in what bowl and what the toppings were and who handed it to them and where they put the bowl. And it's not like there's no emotional weight to the popcorn having. It's not like anyone, like Bach is having a thought about like, wow, this team is so tight knit and they can enjoy like a movie together. Or the salt of this popcorn reminds me of the salty shores by which I was raised upon. Or my old popcorn master once taught me how to pop popcorn in the best. Like nothing there to like add the weight to this. And this is detail work is good when there's a reason for us to be looking at that detail. We had a brief little chat about this before we started, Paris, but
yeah.
The writer's duty is to point your focus at things that have relevance to the plot or the emotional subtext that you're trying to paint here. And you can do that with all this. Like, I'm not saying never talk about popcorn or like, an adventuring party hanging out or anything, but you need to be pulling details and subtext out of these things that you need to be thinking about to make us care about why that's happening. So, for example, Paris, I can see you on screen here because we're on our video chat here as we're talking. And I could be very clinically describe that you are sitting there with a microphone in front of you and there's a bookcase behind you and it's raining outside and there's like some, I don't know what's actually on top of that bookcase behind you. It looks like some stained glass things.
Stained glass windows from a church.
Okay. So I could do that, or I could say, start talking about how the bookcase is full of all these books that you've read, both terrible and good, moments you've shared with friends, discussions that you've had with people. The rain outside reminds you of, I don't know, some time that it was raining before that has some emotional weight for you. The stained glass decorations up on top of the bookshelf are there because they were a gift or something that your partner, brought to your place or gave to you or something. Like, right, there's little emotional pulls that we can add to that instead of just saying, well, there's some stained glass on top of the bookshelf. Well, there's some books on the bookshelf.
Right, like, or if it just had anything at all to fucking do with the scene, the point of the scene. Like, I don't know, if the point of these scenes is just fucking RPG characters doing laundry, then I'm out. I'm out. I don't care.
Like, at best, the RPG characters at home thing works as perhaps a cute series of drawings that someone does, right? Like, you see, like, someone draws a cute little knight or, like, soldier character and they're folding their laundry, and that's, like, a cute little thing you can hang up on your wall. Right. It works in that medium, but not here, I would say.
Yeah, you're forcing my eyes and my brain through so much to get so little. Whereas a drawing, I can look at and process in mere seconds. But these paragraphs about, drinking an energy drink and wearing shorts and getting gas, I just, fucking Christ, I just do not care.
Or, how about opportunities where details could have been enhancing the mood? Right. There's one scene after the big robot fight where there's the line that goes, larger bits of the robot were in new, interesting locations. Missed opportunity for some funnies there if you talk about, like, some comical, because there was actually a lot of other comedy happening in that scene, and so, like, why not be like, oh, the robot's, like, left arm is dangling off of, like, a street lamp or something, and it, like, falls and plunks down into the earth, or one bit of leg is wedged into a window that is a good mile away, or something like that.
The ass panel is hanging off, and it's funny, like anything.
For some reason, the robot has a pair of underwear underneath it because it does have, like, muscles under there. I don't know.
Right.
Something like that. Later on, there is sort of a haggling moment between Sedita and a merchant. And there's a line that's like, the two engage in a struggle of value, each debating the validity of the other's proposal with a new value.
Wow, way to drain all of the purpose and interest out of that scene.
We could have characterized Sedita more based on how she talks about proposing those values, whether she is like, is she a little lightly aggressive? Is she like actually kind of mean about it? Does she joke around with him to try to put him at ease? What's the flavor of this negotiation? That's an opportunity for me to get a little bit more out of Sedita's character. And that was happening in this scene, to be clear, because we do get to see her, like, kind of jump at the opportunity to do this, which the rest of the party, doesn't really care about as much. So it's there. The bed is there. So sow that seed a little bit more. Water the plants.
Yeah, all these farming and agriculture metaphors that we're getting wrong. All those. But yeah, I agree. And instead of just stating they engage in a struggle of value, debating, why don't we just walk in with Sedita going 10 and him going 7 and her going 750? Like, that would have been so much more compelling.
Why did you skip
walk
over
in
that?
And see people, like, getting into it over, like, yeah, I don't know. So I think overall, this particular thing about this that was a problem is that we have a focus on details that don't really add much to the flavor of the story. And in turn, you end up missing opportunities to focus on details that would add to the flavor of the story and make it more interesting. All right. Moving on. I think, for me, a big thing I really didn't like about this is that it's the same old hero's journey stuff. We've got a regular guy, secretly really powerful and called upon to face a seemingly unbeatable foe, complete impossible task. There's unrealistic coincidences that facilitate everything working out perfectly, etc. I just, like, I can't fucking read another story like this. I can't do it.
It is very played out, and as part of this is the fact that you and I read a lot of fantasy novel material, although the hero's journey is absolutely not only in that realm of things. It's in sci-fi. It stretches back centuries, millennia, right? Like, so I have to ask Paris, just to again check ourselves here. Are we railing against just plot structure, like, accepted?
No, and we've had this discussion before. We don't need to have it again. We do not need to talk about this again. The problem is
even this conversation is played out.
Yes, we have had this conversation before. And I don't think we need to have it again. If people are confused about it, I don't know. Fucking too bad. I could sum it up as the hero's journey is extremely predictable, and I find predictable things boring. I know some people find them comforting, but they are a fucking bore to me. I do not need to waste my time reading a story that I know the ending of. And I know all the points that are going to happen, and why do I need to read that?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to start that up again just to seem, again, but like, yeah, we have had this conversation many times, and we're not saying you have to throw the whole thing out in the trash and try to start with, like, you've invented a completely new plot structure out of thin air, but just like twist it a little bit more, or just make it not
I am
so
saying
predictable.
That. No. Let's be distinct here. I am saying throw it all on a fire. Chris is saying meh. Maybe
Give
not.
me something. I mean, like, I'm just so over, like, here's the main guy who is so good at things because he just is. And I know we get a lot of, like, training montage happening here, but they're all just fawning over how Bach is so good and cool at creating this new way of casting magic. But we get a little bit of how he, was able to tease that out because he was just kind of lazy and he just needed, like, magical dishes or something like that. But, like, I don't know, put some weight on that, like, make it a struggle for him. We come in it way later where it's not a struggle at all. So why am I invested? There's no conflict. There's no reason for me. We're even missing that part of the hero's journey, right? Where there's a struggle of training.
Well, he is kind of struggling with his, like, in terms of physical training, and he is still trying to get his magic, to the point where it's powerful enough, at least, or like powerful enough in a long-term sense, because right now he like does something and then he has to recharge and it kind of takes a while or whatever. But anyway, point being, I'm just not into this kind of thing.
Yeah, we've done it enough.
Yeah. Similarly, at first I was pretty excited because the chapter 1 is actually like immediate action, and I was like, oh cool, I'm not gonna have to like slog through a bunch of preamble. But little did I know that the rest of the chapters are all just preamble. It's all just like the training camp, and like, yeah, I guess they have their little cyber zombie encounter or whatever. But I don't know, it just felt like being in the tutorial of a video game for like 11 chapters, and then even the 2 chapters that had stuff going on, I was like, I don't care. I don't know. It didn't hold my attention.
I mean, like, because what we mentioned at the top, where they're like, we are on this quest to revive Sebastian, your brother. We have to get to the Dark Lord Noxian and plunge the sword that he is ethereally bound to into his heart. Let's just go do some grunt work for an indeterminate amount of time. They're like renting Airbnbs out and like just chilling for a while. Like, so.
Well, I think this is part of it. They have to get Bach up to speed and trained and like in better shape, and they need to see that he's able to work with the group. So sorry to shoot you down there, but I think
I just didn't get the sense that that's what they were working towards.
Yeah, you do immediately lose that sense of urgency. That's for sure. It doesn't feel like it's urgent for them to, fix Sebastian's.
He seems fine. Like he's aside from not having a physical body.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he and Aristespa just really want to bang, right? Like that's the whole.
He's not even like he's not even like that emotionally torn up about it, right?
No,
we don't get a scene where he's like, I wish I could touch her.
Yeah, it would be way more effective if we felt like him being in the sword was actually bad. In fact, him being a sword ghost is actually really good for them because he can like go through walls and like check on enemies and stuff and be sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a
scout?
Distraction and yeah, a distraction or a scout. So yeah, I'm not convinced that I'm just not convinced that this mission matters or that I should care about it. Similarly, all the species in this just feel like renamed versions of extant ones, like Evukians are elves, Valians are cat people, Graths are orcs. I guess I don't really know what the half-Emin is, but I'm gonna assume like a halfling or something, but I'm not sure. And it's just, I don't know, man. I don't care.
Is the familiarity, like you mentioned before, it's comforting for some people, and
yes.
that makes it like, again, I think there's this cutesy aspect of RPG characters at home being sort of a major draw of this thing, because I mentioned the subreddit before, and at the top of the subreddit, it specifically bills itself as like a slight, like taking cues from slice of life animes. And now I haven't watched that kind of anime ever, I think.
Me neither.
But the impression that I get from what I hear about those kinds of things is that those animes, the ones that excel at it are the ones that put a lot of emotional subtext and weight on everyday things. Like that action of putting on a shirt, perhaps it was like your older brother's shirt and he died or he moved away or something. Or, this pizza that you're making is an old pizza recipe passed down from you through generations. And if you don't make it right for the governor that's coming through, you won't be able to keep your pizza business going. Like there's all these like tangled things that make these little tiny casual moments more weighty. And that's just not happening here. And so when we get like, especially in with these like fantasy races that happening, like I don't understand why bother coming up with a different name if it's just the same thing. If it's just the same thing, just call him an orc.
Yeah. Hey, remember when I thought this one, being trapped in a sword, was a cool new concept when I was reading the first Malazan book, and you were like, Paris, this is one of the most overused tropes ever. And now I think I've actually seen it in like 4 things, including this story.
I mean, it definitely pops up in a lot of things, but I think
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, what would be great is if instead of Sebastian being trapped in a sword, why couldn't he be like trapped in something fucking hilarious like Aristespa's vibrator or like a spoon, a toaster? Give me anything that isn't a melee weapon.
I guess I suppose it would have had to have been like some real weird thing happening during the confrontation with Dark Noxian if he got trapped in the vibrator. Like, how did that get anywhere near the...
Maybe they were having their final showdown in Aristespa's room. I don't think it's that weird.
Okay, all right, sure. That would also be kind of fun.
Anyway, sorry, that was supposed to be a intentionally dumb example.
I understand it's funny, but I think we can spool this off into, like, what ways can we twist this trapped in a sword trope? Like you said, anything but a melee weapon is fine. Or even a different melee weapon, right? Like, just a mace.
Hammer.
A hammer?
No, I still think it needs to be something totally batshit, like a knitting needle or something. Just something stupid. Like what
a
the
sock.
Fuck? A sock, yeah, trapped in a sock.
How about even like, what if it, instead of being trapped in? I know this wouldn't work for Sebastian's thing in particular. I'm just talking about different ways we can twist this trope. But like, what if you had a sword that you, as a physical person, could go into and out of at will? Right? Like, that's an interesting twist. Like, you just have this sword that is nearby that you can hide in sometimes.
Oh, I'm going night-night into my sword. Time for a nap.
Like, yeah, maybe it's more comfy in there or something like that.
Like a sword pyre. Like a sword pyre. It's like
exactly. Or like, any object. We could even twist this out into like something that you could hide, like an inanimate thing that you could like stash yourself into.
Chris, we just accidentally made Page Master again, where you go and hide in books.
Every single time.
That. I fucking love that movie as a kid. I haven't seen it since I was like 6, so who knows?
Okay, but that doesn't Page Master involve you going into the world of the book?
Yeah, and sometimes it's fucking terrifying.
For me, this is just like you're just in the object, like you're still in our world, and you can, I guess, see out of the book or sword or vibrator or whatever you're trapped in. But
that's great. That's great.
I guess I would want to be trapped in something that would be like mobile on its own, perhaps a toy car or.
So, okay, this is how we get ghosts, Chris. This is why people think ghosts are real, because we got people hanging out in toy cars.
I guess, we've solved the problem.
We've solved the ghost problem. Yeah, I mean, I had trouble with the names. I really liked Bach, but then the fact that his brother was named Sebastian kind of ruined it for me. And the girls in the group just, I couldn't get on board. Maybe Drethi is kind of, if you say it that way, I'm like, oh, maybe. But I don't know, man. Yeah. Dark Lord Noxian, like, how fucking paint by numbers fantasy are we getting here? Like,
this is very personal taste. I feel like,
I know,
right? Like, how do you?
I know.
There's no rule set for coming up with fantasy names. Although I have to say, I think there was attempts at having certain kinds of syllables being used for certain cultures, or I suppose species or races. I don't know how we're dividing this up here. Like Deidre and Dretfi having a D and an E in their names. But you can't spool that out to everyone in that culture having a D and an E in their name, right?
Yes.
And I think maybe Tisalda and Aristespa were supposed to be of similar nature or something like that. So it's coming down to like similar lettering happen. Like there's a similar consonant involved, or a vowel or something happening in there. The mouthfeel just doesn't work for me on all these names. It's like a couple too many consonants to chew on, or
yeah. They don't really.
Like, I'm tasting notes of
Yeah.
just like too many S in there. It's just not for me. I prefer a drier fantasy name.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's definitely something about the mouthfeel that's not. It doesn't come out of your mouth naturally. It's almost like you're like dribbling fantasy phonemes or something. Like I don't know.
But then you
you're
have it
right,
like
I'm
just
not-
Bach and Sebastian and Chad, like, right? Like I get that maybe that's supposed to be a little bit silly on purpose, but like I just don't like it when you're blending stuff like that, even if it's trying to be funny.
Remember fucking suburban Kalen and like what was it? Kalen and Richard. Kawan and Richard, and then Dark Lord like Rawl or what? Fuck, I don't remember. But they also had that like classic normal name, weird name thing, and it just didn't really work. It was kind of it just doesn't sit right.
I don't think we have any advice here, though, right? Like
Well, I think just experiment with the words coming out of your fucking mouth and have some other people also say them, and then decide if they feel weird. Like
maybe they didn't feel weird for all the people that.
maybe.
But like so I don't. Chalk this one up to personal taste, I would guess. Like this is not our flavor. I prefer a milder fantasy name.
Yeah, I think your point of at least making sure there's some consistency in, based on if characters are from the same region or maybe the same ethnicity or culture or something, that makes some sense. But it's pretty difficult to, create your own naming conventions that feel real in something that's totally made up. It is difficult, not saying it's easy, but that is something that always sticks with me in books. The last couple things just have sort of some weird shit that stuck with me. These are just sort of a grab bag of weird things that kind of made me go, I don't know. There is a line where it says, "Damn, there's a whore somewhere pissed at her makeup being stolen." And I mean, I guess if you want that character to be like a mean girl, sure, but can we not? And especially since that character never displays that sort of behavior again.
Agreed. It felt very out of place.
Yeah, it felt really like that line can just be struck. The public humiliation strip and hose down of an 18-year-old at the end was pretty creepy, Chris. I don't know how you felt
my
about
eyebrows
that.
raised at that moment. I think that like there's like this joke trope I've seen before of like, demanding like putting someone in a scenario where you get to say now strip, and that's supposed to be like oh no, I have to be naked, it's fine, how
Yeah,
awkward.
but when you have a bunch of like 30-something-year-old characters saying now strip to an 18-year-old girl,
and I get that because she was filthy and because she was in the forest for like weeks at a time, but like just like using it that way, you could have just made a joke about how she smelled really bad and like you need to get in that fucking shower right now, or like.
Yeah, I just thought the way that, and again, I do want to specify that it didn't do any, we didn't get any sort of gratuitous details or anything like that. It wasn't pornographic at all. I don't want to make anyone think
literally
that,
just,
but
I think it was just the fact that there was strip, period, and that's it, in that very declarative fashion was just a little bit.
Well, and they all kind of focused on like, oh, it really made her learn her lesson. And sorry, we should probably explain a little bit here. That like teenage witch Bavaria, what the fuck was her name?
Valavera, which does kind
Valavera.
of sound like something
Aloe
you find in the CVS, like in the skincare.
Yeah, Valavera. It's Vaseline and aloe vera.
I could probably
together
use
at
some
last.
right now. I'm pretty sunburned.
Oh yeah, you did get sunburned. So anyway, aloe vera, the teenage witch, she's like, she went off and like joined a cult instead of sticking to school, and she thought she could learn these cool powers from this cult, but of course the cult just like abandons her, and then she's in the woods trying to like
Paris,
get her craft
how much
together.
do you have to suck for the cult to abandon you?
Yeah, that's a great fucking question.
For the cult that needs members to indoctrinate to be like, not this one. Like,
Yeah, no thanks. So anyway, she's by herself trying to develop her powers, and you know, the group comes upon her. Of course, then they explain, you know, it was actually this whole overarching plan by her parents to just hope that they would end up hiring the team with, was it Aristespa was like her relative or something?
yes.
You know, anyway, that whole part doesn't really, whatever. So they figure out the disturbance is actually her, and you know, they take her down a peg, and they're like, oh, you've been living in the jungle, like you're so gross, you can't get in the car until you're at least hosed down, right? Was the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just thought it was weird that they were like, strip.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just say, here, wash off, we'll all turn around? But instead all the women still watch her do it, which I thought was fucking weird. Like, they made the author made a point to say that the male characters kind of turn around and go away. But it's like, why? Oh man, this whole thing with Aloe Vera, the teenage witch, just didn't feel like it fit in with anything.
So, just mild sidebar here. This character specifically was the one where I felt like her cursing was put in there to make her feel like
Let's see.
trying to be extra cool. And maybe that's her character too. And I just wasn't picking up on that. But like a lot of her dialogue in particular, especially when they were like, you know, she was trying to be scary at them. And then like Bach was setting the forest fire. The way she talked was not in line with the quality of the dialogue previously, let's say, because of her cursing.
I mean, she is, you know, a rebellious teenager. So to me, that kind of fits with that character. But anyway, I'm guessing that this was added because this character must come back later, but it did feel a little kind of it just kind of felt pointless here. Let's see. Chapter 10 felt like the ending to a sitcom season, but then the story just continues for 3 more chapters, and oh boy, was I sad, because I thought it was only 10 chapters, and I was really not feeling well, and I was really having a hard time finishing it. I literally fell asleep on the couch twice for hours at a time, and Chris and I were supposed to record, and I was like, dude, I'm so foggy, I keep falling asleep, I can't do this, and we had to reschedule. I was just feeling terrible, and so anyway, I finally am like, the next day I sleep, I get up, I'm like, it's still a little foggy, but I'm okay. I can do this. And I'm like trudging along. I'm like, all right, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10.
Put on the shirt.
And
the
then...
comfy shorts were there. I get it. Cool. Keep going. Popcorn distributed.
Yeah. And then I get to chapter 10 and there's the next button and I go, what? No. And then I realized I still have 3 chapters.
But what about what sodas they had and where did they put the sodas, Paris?
Yes, critical information. So I was bummed because I don't know. I thought I was gonna be done, and I wasn't. Last 2 minor things. Why is Talia always swaying her hips when she's thinking? Who does that?
She's the romantic interest character for Bach, is why.
All right. Lastly, black tea with a shot of thick coffee. What is thick coffee?
Coffee be thick. It's my kind of... I like my women like I like my coffee. Thick.
What is thick coffee? Does anyone know? Anyone?
I guess there's that like thickener you can buy to put into liquids. It's like called Thicket or something, perhaps.
What are you fucking talking about?
You didn't know about this? Look this up, actually. No.
Do you just mean cornstarch?
I don't know exactly what it is in there, but it's a product called Thicket, which you put into liquids to make it thick.
No, there's no way. Did someone just rebrand cornstarch?
It probably is just cornstarch, to be honest with you. There's no way it's not just that. I saw it on a Strange Aeons video, actually, when we were looking up the Nathan Madsby thing. One of my YouTube suggestions turned out to be like her going like, I thickened up all these different beverages, so I had to watch because she made thick wine. So I wanted to know what that was like.
No. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's either cornstarch or xanthan gum based. I guess this Thicket particularly is made to help people who have a condition where they can't swallow. I don't know why making it thicker would help. I am very confused.
I'm sure there's a good reason for that, and the people that have this issue are very happy that this exists.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, you can also just put some Metamucil in there, you know?
But, like, back to our point about, in this sentence, black tea with a shot of thick coffee, do you mean, like, the shot is particular, like, there's a lot of the shot? So the shot is thick throughout the tea? Also, can I say, having made cough tea accidentally many times, it ain't nice.
No.
Cough tea is a curse.
Cough tea sucks. The only good form of cough tea is chai with espresso in it. That's great, but that's a very specific
but just like
kind
your
of
plain
tea.
old like English breakfast that you accidentally put through the coffee grounds or something.
God, I've done that too. It's the fucking worst.
It's heinous.
It's like, and the worst thing about it is like the flavors don't combine. They're
No.
just fighting for supremacy in your mouth, and it's
And
terrible.
even as like a caffeine addict, like someone that is totally willing to drink. I have drank 3-day-old coffee, Paris,
Chris,
just
that's not
for
good for
just
you.
for the drugs in it.
Chris, do you understand the timeline of bacteria? Do we need to
It's
go over
coffee.
this?
It's fine.
Yeah, but you had your mouth on it.
Whatever. I'm fine.
There's
I'm
the
sitting
air.
here. I'm sitting here right now doing A-okay. My point being is that even a fiend such as I cannot stand the cough tea.
Are you perhaps a caffeine?
Yes, indeed I am.
All right, I'm probably gonna go to jail for that. Oh God.
Here they come, Paris.
Oh
Quick, can we fix
no!
it?
You can't take.
Okay, so can
Yeah.
we
What do
fix
you
it?
think, Chris? Yeah. Can we fix it?
I just need a lot more seasoning on this. A lot more seasoning on this. The matter of fact prose rarely tosses me a simile or a metaphor or some kind of description I can sink my teeth into. Barely a scrap of nuanced description to be had. If you're doing slice of life, I need like a ton of reasons why the way someone puts on a shirt is simmering with emotional flavors. Perhaps the shirt is full of holes from previous adventures, or it smells like the room the person grew up in, or the particular method for shirt donning was taught to him by his old putting on a shirt sensei. I want those like unintroduced neurons in my brain to meet. I've talked about this before. I like it when like two parts of my brain that haven't connected before meet up and have that little meet cute. And I just got none of that here.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, for me, this is just, I mean, another one that's not for me, though. I think, I'm starting in a place where this is already not for me on a few different levels. I'm not into slice of life anime. I'm not into web series. I'm not into Hero's Journey RPG stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just beyond tired of paint-by-number Hero's Journey stories because they are predictable, and predictability just isn't fun for me. I recognize that other people find it comforting, but to me, it's a chore. In terms of flavor, if this had more of a Mad Max sauce on it and less of like the cartoon anime glaze, I think I'd be more into it. In terms of substance and plot, I think I just don't really like slice of life stuff, honestly. I do not give a shit about someone changing their shirt and sitting on a bed, or the order and toppings of popcorn buckets. This is just extremely uninteresting to me, but my best guess is that some people must feel this makes a story and its characters more relatable, like, oh, hey, I eat popcorn and also change my shirt and sit on bed, so go main character guy, or something. But that just doesn't work for me. And of course, this is different from, describing little moments in life that have greater meaning, which I think Still Life with Monkey actually did really well, because you have a guy who becomes paralyzed in various ways, and so describing little pieces of life obviously carries much greater weight. And yeah, I don't know. We're just not getting anything like that here. Sorry. It's just not for me, I think. It's not for me.
Thank you to our patrons, Dari, Greg, Veronica, Will, D, Jared, Arant, Senya, Jakub, Lycoris, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, Luchek, Miri, Yanka, David, Anya, Patricia, Austin, Donnie, Crimson Paladin, Beast with the Least, Scott H, Robin, Laxtodes, Of the Void, the Taco-Eating Unicorn, Last Man on Earth 01, Funny Robot with Antennas, Hobbyboy93, Selena, and our Ko-fi donor Kiwi Thing. Special thanks to Bryan for submitting AintAHero for us to read. Thank you for your long-standing patronage and just being generally communicative with us and interacting, and we hope our review was helpful.
Extra special thank you this episode to Beast with the Least, Of the Void, the Taco Eating Unicorn, and Perry for taking a bunch of old terrible books off our hands so I didn't have to move them to my new apartment, or to Chris's house, and thank you to Chris for taking the bulk of the Sword of Truth collection.
I had to rescue them. I'm loath to say we're going to read those anytime soon because, boy, is the page count just too high for us at this point. But I just couldn't. I just wanted to have them in case, and I felt like Teriblo asked me to do it that day. Actually, when I took them, a bunch of good things happened, and I feel like I was blessed by our Dark Lord for that.
True.
So I wanted to have them on hand in case. Don't expect them to come up anytime soon, though. Like, it's a very special occasion where that will happen.
Yeah, I could see some kind of, like, I don't know, 10-year anniversary bust went out or something. But on that note, please continue to relieve me of books and contact us if you want free terrible books shipped to you, again, for free. Free books shipped to you for free, please. I'm begging you, my bookshelf is so sick. Please, God. So my bookshelf has more books on it now. It is full. It is twice or thrice stuffed in many of the cubes. It needs room to breathe. Please help my sick bookshelf. Seriously, we've sent boxes of books to people for free. I get discounted shipping. So it's really not a lift for us to spend a few bucks to send you a bunch of books that we really don't want in our homes, especially mine, because I have too many books.
You know what? Why don't I just say some of the books that are available since I have this picture?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
You too can be the owner of such works like Do What Matters Most, The Book of Adonatology, Lord Iffy Boat Race, Killer Chef, Dark Star, The Haunted Vagina, Flashback by Dan Simmons, Ho Tactics. You could get Ho Tactics. You could have Swamplandia. You could have Final Fantasy VII on the way to a smile. You could have Museum of the Living Dead. You could have Emblem of Unity or Pinkle Jinxed or The Wild Big Book of Fabulous Fun-Filled Celebrations and Holiday Crafts. That was a long title. There's Murder Gone Awry. There's the Maze book. Come on, man.
There's all the ones that are in my house, which are, let's see. I've got the first 3 Sword of Truth books. I've got, I've got the Trump book. I've got the Bird Tits book. I forget what it's called.
Okay, well, that's not a really great description of what that book.
My eyesight's so bad that I can only distinguish them by, like, their general shape and color and pattern, and so I'm struggling a little bit.
To be clear, if you asked for the Bird Tits book, it's probably not what you're thinking if you haven't listened to the episode Audubon's Watch.
Yeah, it was Audubon's Watch. Thank you. It came back to me. God.
All right, Paris, we've made it through yet another hero's journey. Are you changed? Are you leveled up? Powered up? How you feeling?
I'm really ready to launch into spooky season, and I think we've got some good spooky selections.
I agree.
For this,
it is time.
For this fall.
It is time for the spooks.
Spookening. I mean, personally, I think year-round is spooky time. I actually feel that September through February is pretty much fair game for spooks, but I know the rest of the world just wants to shove it all into October, but I don't know. I think we get a couple good ones in October, and then maybe I forget what the schedule looks like in the deep fall in November.
Well, we'll all find out together, won't we? As we go on this journey together to defeat the Dark Lord.
Teriblo.
Well, no, he's our.
That's true. No, we don't.
Okay,
defeat Teriblo.
We're a little mixed up on here. Yeah, that's so. We're the minions is really what this is.
Oh my God.
We're the 2 comedic relief henchmen is what this is, Paris.
Oh God, we're like fucking Zip and Zap. Jesus Christ.
I think it's Vip and Vap if you're thinking Disenchantment.
Oh, Vip and Vap. No, wait. What are the other ones? No, who are we, Chris? Who are we? What's the one? Pain and Panic.
Oh, that's completely different.
Yeah.
Who's Pain and who's Panic?
I don't know.
We could maybe we're interchangeable. It could be either or. I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Damn it, have we done this for this many years just to be minions?
I mean, we
that would be the cruel joke at the end, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
It would.
Well, here we are signing off for our Dark Lord once again. Bye.
All right, well.
Bye, Paris.
What? I need to go to bed. Farewell. Goodbye, Chris. Thank you for listening to another episode of Terrible Book Club. Terrible Book Club is an independent podcast produced by your hosts, Paris and Chris. Sound design and audio editing by Chris, with sound effects and music by Epidemic Sound and sometimes also Chris. Our theme song is Kiss by Yearn, which is, you guessed it, actually also Chris. You can find more of his soothing synthy sounds on Bandcamp at yearn.bandcamp.com. Do you want us to review a book of your choice on the show? Do you want access to some extra audiovisual weirdness? If so, become a patron at patreon.com/terriblebookclub. If you'd like to send us a one-time tip instead, you can do that at ko-fi.com/terriblebookclub. You can also support TBC for free by sharing the show on social media, following our accounts on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Goodreads, telling your friends about your favorite episode, or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or anywhere else on the internet. To send us book recommendations or your adorable pet photos, send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.